Ngā manuru, nai naru, Gadigal. Greetings everyone, I just wanted to acknowledge Gadigal country. Pay respects to elders past and present. Thanks very much for the welcome, man. Hi everyone, my name's Jason Daylight. My last name's Santolo, but my Aboriginal family name is Daylight, so up home my name is Jason Daylight. I've been working at Jumbunna Research Unit for the last 10 years. And I'm originally from Darwin, born in Darwin, and my people are from the southwest Gulf country of the Northern Territory. We've had a really long history of resistance up home, and we really celebrate that. We actually had a 30-year war stopping a lot of the colonisers coming up from the Queensland up into the Northern Territory through our country. And we're really proud of that. That happened on this area of land called Gurindji. And it's part of our celebrated history of resistance. We were just up in Darwin recently and hanging out with one of my elders, Dad Stuart Wilson. And I just thought, just to pay respects to the amazing, movement that came out of from Gurindji and from Wave Hill. I sort of talked to him a bit about it because he told me a story back in the day. He was taken from Gurindji as a slave at about 10 years old, and he got taken to Queensland. And he worked on cattle stations and stuff for quite a few years as a slave, and he was just paid with rations and food. And anyway, when he was actually saved by his stepfather, he told us a story that he was actually driving back through Wave Hill at the time of the protests, and he was 16 years old. And the thing that I thought that was really powerful about his story was that he didn't, as they were driving through, the story at the moment was like, oh, this is a strike, but no one really understood what it meant. So he was driving through, he just experienced well over 6 years of slavery, and he was driving through a massive moment in history which would really impact on him in years to come. But at that moment he didn't understand what was happening. And I think that's what really upset him now in terms of, and Paddy was up there too, and we're all working together. But what really upsets him now, about 50 years on, is that the same shit is happening. Exactly the same stuff. Our community members are under an intervention and a welfare system which, they have to work for the dole. They're basically working for rations. The basics card under the Northern Territory intervention, which has been up there since 2007, it's a ration card. And I'm sure a lot of you already know this kind of stuff, but I guess the idea of the thing that he was really upset about was the idea of celebrating something that has where like a Western rights framework, where we are looking at sort of like equal rights and things like that as the ethos behind self-determination, and how he's looking at it now and saying, well, how come my people are suffering under exactly the same regime that strike was meant to break? And I guess part of the big process of that is the discourse that's coming out, is our stories. And just coming back to the idea of the story, at work we've been sort of looking at the importance of a storied approach to self-determination. So we're often like, in terms of the struggle up in the Gulf, we're fighting, we're trying to shut down the Kapa River mine, which has been poisoning the river and our communities and the land for quite a few decades. And we're working with a number of environmental and other groups. But it's the discourse that's coming out that might be part of the problem. Because there seems to be a default reliance on Western rights frameworks, as though that self-fulfilling prophecy of colonisation is going to shift and transform the paradigm in which we're operating within. And and I think what's really interesting when we look to what's been happening up home is that we've actually shifted the discourse that's coming out. So we're bringing our own jurisprudence and our own articulations of what it is, what self-determination might be. So, for example, in our Aboriginal law, in Gadigal law, our title to the land doesn't come a bit of paper like this, we don't get given a title through native title or land rights or whatever. Our title, our authority to the land is in our song traditions. So our ceremonies and all the interconnectedness of that ceremony and the renewal process of that every year is actually about us maintaining that balance and relationship with each other and the land and the waters. Our song traditions hold canons of law. They're deeply, deeply sophisticated ways of understanding the relationship to land and looking after country. So what we've been doing is actually bringing that discourse up to the front of the way that we're articulating the struggle. And I think it's really important when we're looking at our elders to understand why that's so important. You know, why is it important that we put our language and culture at the forefront of our struggle and the way we articulate that? Why is that important? We've been thinking more and more about the importance of our world-making process. So if we're going to fight for rights over our land and stuff, if we articulate that within a Western rights paradigm, then we're going to trap ourselves. So what we're seeing now is manifestations of the land rights regime and native title regime is still allowing the destruction of our lands. It's still allowing the murder and torture of our youth. It's still allowing direct instruction in our schools. You know, a system of direct instruction is happening in the schools in Borroloola, which is a system from the US. It's promoted by a guy called Noel Pearson, which I'm sure you all hear about and read him in the Australian, if anyone ever reads the Australian. But these things are colonising our people within a paradigm which has emerged, a land rights paradigm, a native title paradigm, which is all part of the self-fulfilling prophecy of colonisation. So we need to fracture that. And that's why a storied approach to self-determination, privileging our song traditions. And one of them is really important, and we had a protest recently against Glencore Mine down here. I don't know if some of you guys were there or seen it, but we're trying to shut down Glencore's MacArthur River Mine. And we had a protest down at their headquarters down here. And what the elders and our youth are doing is that we're not just talking about rights over land and stuff, we're talking about our world making, the way we see it, the world. And that's part of that is through our song traditions, and one of them is the Nabaya song tradition. It's a song line that travels all the way from WA to Queensland. So it's a song line that travels all the way through, and it comes through our territory. And in our territory it's called Nabaya, and they're called spirit beings. But in articulating at the forefront of our message, we're saying we are singing our songs and dancing our melodies. So we're not actually asking for anything. You know, we're not asking for recognition in a constitution that is about murder and theft and colonisation. You know, we're not asking for a treaty. What is a treaty? A treaty is a colonial tool for commodifying land and people. I'm still really perplexed why people think a treaty is a left radical option for our people. Why is a treaty considered an option for our people? If we look around the world, all over the world, every single treaty is being dishonoured. Every single treaty. You know, and that's what I think this whole discourse, and I'm blabbing on about discourse, but it's powerful because that is what creates our world. And there's a really good example in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I worked over there, I studied law there, and they're called the Tūhoe Nation. It was one of the few tribes that never signed the treaty. And they articulated their rights movement based on mana motuhake, which is like their own cultural concept of authority over the land. And what they embedded into their treaty was a concept and a strategy. It's an international strategy called maximum autonomy. And maximum autonomy is basically as independent as you can be, but within the confines of the state. It's used around the world. It's seen as a strategy to take you through chaos so that future generations may be able to affect true, independence. So what they did in their treaty settlement was to develop a 50-year plan which devolved all of these systems which are constantly oppressive us. So over the next 50 years, they're going to take back and control education in their own language. Over the next 50 years, they're going to take back control of conservation and looking after their territory. Over the next 50 years, they're taking back all of those mechanisms of government at a local level, rather than constantly being in a position where you're entering into greater relationships with the government. It's about actually becoming more independent on your own lands. So I guess that's part of that in terms of what we're looking at in terms of celebrating these really important moments. We just saw the Vincent Lingiari talk up at Charles Darwin University. Our colleague Larissa Brent delivered that talk. And I think one of the most important things that came out of that for me was the idea that it's all about relationships. So I was hearing a talk before about, the really great talk about climate crisis and things like that. But in reality, the way we see it, I think when we're working with people, is that we're all related. The idea of renewal, or the movement, or the moment of celebration, is about celebrating the fact that we have actions and processes. We are doing things which are about sustaining human life. It's about sustaining human life and the life of the environment we are in. And there's lots of ways to articulate that, but I think the Hawaiians really articulate that really well. Their idea of sovereignty is one of their core concepts is ia, which is, at one level, it's just breath. It's the idea that as you breathe, you are connecting to everyone around you, and you are being sustained. So the idea that we're fighting for our own lands, and looking after the rivers, and trying to create a really healthy, sustainable world for everyone it's about everyone. I went into Don Dale just 2 days ago, and I was really worried when all that shit hit the fan and it all came out. We all knew this was happening, and it's all related, right? But I went into Don Dale to see my nephew, and he's been in remand for 7 months, so he hasn't had the ability for a bail hearing, jack all in the Northern Territory. And I went into Don Dale, and he was like, what was giving him hope was the fact that he was learning how to cook. So he was making fresh bread and sharing fresh bread in a full-on place. These are young people. And I thought, that's fucking bullshit. He's a young man who dances that ngāwhia for us. So in other words, he's at the forefront of he's one of the forefront of he's going to take our movement and protect our lands because he carries that knowledge. He continues to dance that, and sing those songs right at the forefront of us, and the elders are really happy about that. So it's not about, for us, I think it's not just about articulating and pushing, Western rights frameworks within that self-fulfilling prophecy. There's an element of that, but it's actually breaking that paradigm and actually getting that song, because that song, all those songs, all the song lines and everything around this country that connect everything, they are still flowing. They're in each and every one of us. And there's a real beauty in that, I think. So I'm really excited that a whole bunch of really cool people are heading up to Waipō. I know Paddy and heaps of my mates are going up there. The Seed Mob, which is, I don't know if you guys know about the Seed Mob, but they're a group of young, really amazing Aboriginal youth and activists who are fighting for country. And I really, really want to see people like Adam Giles, Malcolm Turnbull, all of these cronies who are actually destroying our worlds, torturing our kids. I want to see them called out. But yeah, I might just leave it there. I'm rambling on. We've been travelling a lot. I just had a baby as well. Not me, but my partner. A few weeks ago. And, you know, it's all about our kids. And, you know, it's just so beautiful having a baby and everything. But we're in RPA, and the next day I started to freak out. You know, I'm a lawyer, I've got lawyer mates, I've got a team, I've got lots of resources. But I started to freak out and get really nervous about having my baby in that Western institution. Because I know, and Paddy has told me stories, and we know that armed police are going into RPA and taking Aboriginal babies at birth. At birth. And I started to get nervous. I was like, fuck this, I'm out of here. No one's going to touch my baby. And that's the message that we're sending to our elders, that we are fighting for our kids. Yeah, we're fighting for our lands. And we're really dedicated to doing it in a way that you know best. I think our elders really know best. And I know that they know good people. And this brother here, Paddy, they love Paddy. They love him. Because he really stands with the elders and listens. You know. So I'll pass it on to